Hi everyone, this is Logan with 11th Peak Digital. Wanted to show a quick walkthrough of our PPC budget calculator. This tool helps you estimate what it would cost to realistically compete in any given market for your business and whether or not that makes sense. Not every campaign may make sense. It might be too cost prohibitive, but it also allows you to see what an expected ROI would be and when it would make sense for your business. So there's a few things to know about this tool. The first is that we do have benchmarks that you can go off of. And so to use those, you would just pick what industry you're in. And it's just looking at data from aggregate site that's pulling in data for these different industries. And we also have the format. So if you're running a Google search ad versus a Google display, this calculator is exclusive to Google data, so it is based on that. That is where the study is from. You can see it's come from WordStream down here if you want to read more on that data. So then we get into the fields, which these are controlled by our defaults here, but you can also manually put them in yourself if you get some data from Google Keywords or SEMrush or another tool that gives you the average cost. But really, we want to look at two different costs. The cost per click low. So what is the estimated cost if we're on the low end? And then what is the estimated cost on the high end? So that's going to give us our range of if we had to pay for all the clicks are at the highest versus the lowest, what would those cost differences look like and what would the ROI look like with that? The monthly total volume of keywords, that's going to be what is the volume of all the searches people are doing around the terms you're going after. This includes people who may click on, other ads, they may click on organic results, they may click elsewhere in a search results. So not every single one of these will make it to your site, but just what is the overall search volume? Then we go to click-through rate. So this is how many people realistically are going to click through to your ad. How many times are you realistically going to be shown to for these or get the click? So there may be 1,000 opportunities to get a click, but you might only be clicked 3% of the time, which you can see here. Click-through rate, 3 to 5% is a pretty decent click-through rate. So that's why we have it there at 3. So that's how you're going to figure out how much traffic is getting to your site. But then we have to figure out how many of those are going to convert. And so out of this, if we looked in this example, 30 people, the click-through rate is going to be 30 people making it to the site out of 1,000. And out of 30, 3% of them would be a lead. So right now you wouldn't even be getting a lead. But if we bump that volume up to 100,000, now 3,000 people are making it to your site. And then 3% of that would be around 59 or somewhere around. I don't know the exact math. But so we're getting leads, and then average lead value. So how much a lead is worth to you. The more a lead is worth, the more you have budget to run. Obviously, if you have a very low average lead value, we're talking anything less than $100 per lead, you are going to need a cost per click in the few dollars range. Otherwise, it's just the math's not going to work out for you. So let's just run through an example to show you what that might look like. So I'm going to say that I am in the e-commerce industry running a search ad. We can see the average cost that just updated for us is 58 cents to $1.74. And then the average click-through rate is 2.69%. So we're just going to stay with the industry average. Now we're going to say between all the keywords that we're going after, we are going to have a monthly volume of 100,000. So 100,000 people search between all the terms we're going after. We're going to stay with the industry standard 2.81% conversion rate. And we're going to say the average order value we have is $143. So now when we click and run this, it estimates that we're going to get 2,690 clicks, which is going to get us 75 conversions of an estimated value of $10,800. To get that $10,000 on the low end, which means we're only getting the 58-cent clicks, it's going to cost $1,500. The average, just looking between them, $3,000, and on the high end, $4,680. So if that was the case, on the low end, it would be $20 per lead, and on the high end, $62. And so our ROAS would be 2.3 to 6.9. That would be our estimated range. And those are a pretty healthy range of what we would want to see. Really, with e-commerce, we're shooting for like 4 to 8, definitely above 4. You're above 8 or 10, you're really doing good. But this would say this is very viable and it would make sense for us. Now let's flip on the other side and let's see what we could look at. And this could tell us we need to expand our campaign because we don't have enough volume. Is something like this, where maybe we go down to, let's bump it down to 10,000. So now that the math still works, but it's just not the most money on return. So let's just go down to 1,000 and then let's see. We're still in the positive, but again, we can see our estimated total value is very low. So our ROAS has stayed. And so I want to just give an example where we're not getting enough. So let's just go to 10. So clearly we don't even get a lead. So you have to look at what the minimum would be to get a lead. So in this case, if we're looking, and again, it's going to take us like around 1,500 would be the minimum to get one lead. So we need to monitor that and see what volume is realistic, but then we have to see with our ROAS. And so let's just say in this case that we only got $50 per lead. We'll bump it back up to our 10,000. So we got plenty of volume. But now we can see that because our average lead value is only $50, that we're estimated to earn $380 or so. And if we're in the low click, that's fine. And if we're in the middle click, we're all right. We're still in the positive, but it's not much margin. But if we get the high one, we're actually in the hole. So anything less than 50, really, we're going to struggle. And honestly, we really need this to be more closer to around 75 probably to give us more breathing room where we're covered even on the high end. So that is how you use this tool to really understand what campaigns would make sense. And the way you're going to figure out and find that is you can look at the terms, and maybe you find 4 terms that gets you to the right cost per click. But you can work around with this and see, okay, feasibly, we can only afford to be 58 cents to $1.74. Well, what terms can you realistically be in that range? And then is the volume enough? If the volume's not enough, then what other things do you have to go after to get the volume up? Because without a volume, you're just not going to get enough to get the leads. If you have any questions with using this tool,